IUB and our partner organizations, ICAD and BIMRAD, I warmly welcome all of you. Our moderator will hopefully join shortly once he is able to overcome the technical glitches because he is joining in from California. In the meantime, we will start immediately, and I will fill in for him until he joins. We will start with the welcome remarks by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Milan Pagon. Professor Pagon, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Ambassador Karim. Dear colleagues, dear viewers, welcome to the final webinar in the series of Bay of Bengal webinars that we are organizing. What we set out to do here was to put the Bay of Bengal in the context of the new normal, and also to put the new normal it out in my opening speech that what the coronavirus situation, which turned everything upside down, what it taught us was that the only way out of this is through collaboration and through data-driven decision-making. And to that end, we joined forces of BIMRAD, which is Bangladesh Institute of Maritime Research and Development, associated with the Navy, ICAD, International Center for Climate Change and Development, and IUB, Independent University Bangladesh. So our collaboration aims at generating data that will then support decision of the policymakers and decision makers. We then moved on, and we were talking about that we can only do that if we work in the environment that enables us to achieve our goals. So we're talking about protecting the environment, and finally we moved into the area of smart harvesting of marine resources. We pointed out that we should make we need to make sure that we do not destroy the marine resources, because then there's nothing to harvest. Now finally we are moving into regional cooperation, where again, coming back to what I said at the beginning, collaboration, cooperation is the key. Today's long list of participants, very esteemed participants, reflect that collaboration attempt. And this could not be possible without our senior fellow and the ambassador retired, Tariq Karim. Without you, Mr. Ambassador, we would never be able to gather such August list of participants. Now, at the end, I want to tell you a short story, very short story. It's a story about a husband and a wife. And the wife asked the husband, "Do you love me?" And the husband was like, "You know that I do. Now that I stop and think about it, I realize I do love you." So see, sometimes in our lives, we have to stop and think about something to create awareness, which then serves as basis for action. And when it comes to Bay of Bengal, that awareness needs to be created. There are many, many people who are focused on day-to-day problems and they don't see the big picture. So hopefully with these 4 webinars, we created enough awareness that will be able to continue the collaboration that I mentioned before, BIMRAD, ICAD, and IUB, and everybody else, of course, is invited to join our efforts. So I hope that today, the last webinar, will generate a lot of new questions, new ideas, new suggestions, and we'll be able to work on that as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Still waiting for host. Thank you, Vice Chancellor, for setting this off and setting the tone. I welcome our moderator, Dr. Zaidi Sattar, and I will hand over to him. So, Dr. Zaidi Sattar, you can take over from me now and start, introduce yourself and then start off as per the moderator's timeline given to you. Over to you, Zaidi. Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry about the faux pas. We had some difficulties.
No problem. No problem. Thank you for joining from California.
Thank you for inviting me and giving me this honor and privilege to participate in this extraordinary seminar centering around the Bay of Bengal. I missed listening to the very interesting welcome remarks from the Vice Chancellor. But I'm sure from what I heard in the last minute, it was really very encouraging and sort of laced with humor as well. Thank you so much. Now, we have a very heavy agenda today, it seems, and we also have a very rich ensemble of experts who are, seasoned diplomats, who are experts in maritime laws and institutions. And of course, there are economists and there are environmental experts as well, because the ecology, apart from geopolitics of the region and the geoeconomics of it, we need to get multi-talented people talking about it. And that has been the case in this particular event. We have a very seasoned diplomat, Ambassador Mashfi Binte Shams, if I may address her as ambassador. There's a saying that once an ambassador, always an ambassador. So Ambassador Mashfi Shams is our keynote speaker today, and she will be talking about the regional importance of the Bay of Bengal for Bangladesh and its landlocked and littoral neighbors. The center, the focal issue today is, of course, the Bay of Bengal. And Bangladesh has a symbiotic relationship with this bay. And the name suggests that. Name Bengal suggests that there's a long history of Bangladesh related to this particular bay. And but what I feel is that the future is indeed much more prospective and much more consequential for Bangladesh and this particular Bay of Bengal, which has played the conduit for Bangladesh's global integration in the past 25 years. And this global integration of Bangladesh has led to tremendous progress, tremendous economic progress, as well as poverty reduction. And hopefully, COVID, of course, has caused some disruption to this, the smooth progress that was taking place. And in the post-pandemic world, although there's a lot of consternation about and apprehensions about what the state of play would be after the COVID-19 crisis is over, we think the prospects of Bangladesh remain bright, and there will be some changes. Yes, we can see that there are tectonic shifts taking place in the balance of economic power. And with changes in the balance of economic power, there's obvious changes in geopolitical influence in the region. So I will not dwell too much on these things right now. Let us actually move to the keynote presentation from Ambassador Mashfi Binte Shams. Ambassador Shams is a career diplomat who joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1991 and served in Bangladesh missions in Rome, Bangkok, and New Delhi, where she was the Deputy High Commissioner of Bangladesh to India. And subsequently, she became ambassador. She served as ambassador of Bangladesh to Nepal, where I think she got lots of insights into the challenges of landlocked countries like Nepal and Bhutan, and of course, Northeast India. Ambassador Shams is now an additional foreign secretary, which is just one step away from becoming foreign secretary. She has been a Director General of South Asia, and she represented Bangladesh in many bilateral, regional, and multilateral conferences around the world. She has a master's degree in international relations from Leeds University, UK. So with these short introduction, I would like to pass on the mic to Ambassador Mashfi Binte Shams. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for inviting me. I would like to thank the organizers and particularly Ambassador Tariq Karim sir for inviting me to participate in this very important and timely webinar. Actually, it is very intimidating for me to be speaking in front of two very senior colleagues, Ambassador Shamsher Momi Chaudhry and Ambassador Karim. And really, I'm feeling quite humbled that I'm speaking in front of them. But since I have been invited to speak on this subject, I will try to make a few points. I hope most of you will find them interesting, and we will be able to get something from out of it. Distinguished guests, today we are talking together at a time of the corona crisis. The COVID-19 has showed that we are not only interconnected and interdependent, but we are also very fragile. And it is particularly true for the countries of South Asia. South Asia, and especially the countries surrounding the Bay of Bengal, Bangladesh firmly believes that a regional approach is the best way forward. Now, talking about the Bay of Bengal, this bay has been played a pivotal role in the destinies of the countries surrounding it. Bangladesh, India, even for Nepal and Bhutan. The littoral states have depended on it for trade, for connection to the outside world, and for their own survival. There is a saying in Nepal that when there's a cloud over the Bay of Bengal, that means it's going to rain in Nepal. So the interdependence, even though the bay is so far away from the Himalayas, even then the interdependence is there. Since the earlier series, the webinars have already discussed in detail about the strategic importance of the bay and the ecological and environmental aspects of the bay. I'm not at all going to dwell on them, even though there was quite a lot of it in my keynote speech, which has been shared with everybody, I think. I will straight away jump into the regional cooperation area. So in the interest of time, I have some issues with my eyesight, so I hope all of you will bear with me. So if we are going to talk of the Bay of Bengal, Nepal, Bhutan, India, and Bangladesh share so many complementarities and commonalities that we can hardly afford not to cooperate with each other. Our destinies, along with our past, are entangled together along with the Bay of Bengal. And this bay binds us together with economically, culturally, and it is our common strategic interlocutor for building our future. And even though the Nepal, Bhutan, and Northeast India can are fully able to tap into the resources of the Bay of Bengal, they will be able to fully shift from their current status of landlocked to land-linked. Distinguished panelists, the resurgence of the economic interest in the Bay of Bengal has caused regional initiatives such as the BBIN and the BIMSTEC to gain traction in recent years. BIMSTEC connects South Asia and South Asia's strategic peripheries such as Nepal and Bhutan in the Himalayan sub-region, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh in the Bay of Bengal sub-region, and Myanmar and Thailand in the Mekong sub-region. The Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal motor vehicle agreement, we believe, represents one of the best areas where regional integration can take place, and the potential for regional integration can be fully nurtured. Now, let us look at the economies of the landlocked countries. Economies of the countries like Nepal and Bhutan are particularly vulnerable to global economic shocks, as their products lack diversity and their trading partners are very few. Additionally, their small economies are often burdened with high debt levels. The problems of distance is compounded with the structure of LLDC exports, which are dominated by low-value bulk commodities. LLDC's lack of interaction with the external market hinder more economic growth by limiting the size of their domestic firms, which also discourages specialization in production. Landlocked countries' dependence on their maritime neighbors has many forms, such as dependence on neighbors' markets, institutions, and infrastructures with very little choice over the transport mode, route, price, and management. Dependence on cross-border friendly political relations, dependence on neighbors' peace and stability, dependence on neighbors' administrative practices and transport policies. All these factors translate into a development divide and combine to yield different sets of challenges and priorities. Furthermore, in most cases, landlocked countries, the marine countries of the landlocked countries are often beset with similar challenges of poor infrastructure and also other political issues. In addition to these realities, a number of recent developments, such as uncertainties of global supply chains, stringent security requirements, rising fuel costs, and environmental impacts of vehicular traffic also add to the disadvantages of the landlocked countries. Landlocked countries tend to trade, it has been seen that they tend to trade more with their immediate neighbors, such as for Nepal and Bhutan, the major trading partners is India. Whereas for India, which is a marine country, or Bangladesh, they can afford to trade with more distant countries. So that gives them more options and more choices. In addition to this, if we specifically talk of our bay, the ports on the Bay of Bengal are especially vulnerable to extreme weather events. Maintaining the physical integrity of these ports, therefore, makes for a strong economic argument, but attracting finance for maritime infrastructure can be difficult for the landlocked countries. There are only very few international lenders who are able to, who are capable of financing these sort of major megastructures. For example, building railways or inland freight stations or seaport terminals. And even when these the issues of finances are taken, finance is taken on, there are still, it still remains for the question of sustainability, economic viability, etc., come into effect. Now, part 10 of the UN Convention of UNCLOS has elaborately dealt with the rights of the transit rights of the landlocked countries. However, such rights are also made committed with the bilateral or multilateral agreements between the landlocked and the landlocked countries. Political will and commitment of the transit countries have highly conditioned the rights of the landlocked countries. Now, in order to reap the fullest benefits of the legal instruments that we have been talking about, it is necessary to have an integrated regional approach, which sadly still remains absent in South Asia. Even though some initiatives are currently are taking headway, nowadays the focus has been shifting slowly from a corridor approach to a more regional approach. If we talk of the logistics capacity of the inland multimodal transport networks and ancillary infrastructures needs to be planned at a time, or needs to be planned at the regional level with all stakeholders on board, involving local businesses clustered around highways, river ports, and railway modes, thereby creating development corridors along the transit routes. It is also important to facilitate free movement of people through simplified visa regimes and to develop effective logistic systems by aligning incentives for efficient transit operations, phasing out anti-competitive practices such as cartels and queuing. It is also very important to help the landlord countries to develop the capacity to prepare for bankable large-scale infrastructure projects for maritime connectivity and to explore innovative financing mechanisms for those projects, including public-private partnerships. And at the same time, the countries of South Asia should refrain from introducing new barriers to trade in the form of technical or inspection-related barriers, which we very often see. Now, if we talk of specific country-wise, for example, Nepal's third country transit trade still largely takes place via India under the transit agreement signed in 1978. Nepal's transit regime with India has undergone a progressive evolution, but not without issues related to the political dynamics. The India-Nepal trade and transit relationship is complex and spans political, cultural, regional elements beyond the commercial rationale. Specifically, the ports of Visakhapatnam, Kolkata, and Haldia in India are used for transit of Nepali products, Nepali cargo, but due to the draft limitations at these ports, these containers are being transshipped with feeder vehicle vessels, and thus it results in loss of time and wastage and all the related problems. Recently, Nepal has requested for access to Gujarat, to the Mundra port in Gujarat and Damara in Odisha, in addition to these ports that they are now using. Inefficient border crossings, where goods can be held up for days or weeks, also means not only that goods are spoiled, but traders have to keep big inventories, which also adds to the costs. Nepal has started looking at China for a possible third country trade after the border blockade of 2015. The Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli has signed the transit and trade agreement with a transportation agreement with China in 2016, and the protocol to it has come into effect in 2020. This allows Nepal access to 4 seaports and 3 land ports of China for third country trade. However, that itself is also fraught with certain uncertainties, including the high mountainous terrain of the Himalayas, the frequent landslides and other natural disasters over there, and then the nearest seaport is almost 4,000 kilometers away, which is significantly further than from the Birganj to Kolkata, which is almost 4 times of the distance from Birganj to Kolkata. So this it still remains to be seen how much practical the Nepal-China linkage will be. Whether it is very successful or not, it definitely will give Nepal some leverage in dealing with India in other issues. What we in Bangladesh believe is that Nepal's quest for an alternative transit route to connect its economy with the world would be the best, the judicious option would be to use the ports of Bangladesh to using the inland waterways, the railways, and the land routes. The development of the inland waterways of Bangladesh is very essential to revitalizing the connectivity of the region, as road and railways have almost saturated. It is especially important for landlocked Nepal, Bhutan, and northeastern India, as it provides them with an outlet to the Bay of Bengal. Riverine connectivity has long been the mainstay of the connection between the peoples of this region. Bangladesh Inland Waterways Network connects Kolkata and Haldia with the ports of Northeast India through designated land routes under the Bangladesh-India Protocol on inland water transit and trade. It covers the hinterlands of Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, in addition to Assam and Meghalaya. Linking Chittagong Seaport with the northern tip of Tripura is also possible. This will provide tremendous gains in terms of reducing time and cost. Transshipment through the Ashugans to Northeast India using the seaports of Chittagong, Mongla, and Paira, linking inland waterways, will play a role for the economies of both the countries. The inland container terminal at Ashuganj, when completed, will also increase the transshipment volume. And with the operationalization of the Akhara-Agartala railing, the Ashuganj seaport is expected to become even more profitable. The Bangladesh government welcomes private sector investments in developing the ICTs to ferry containers through the river routes to the seaports to avoid delays caused by the road congestion. Now, though India and Bangladesh have penned the direct shipping agreement in 2016, the cargo volume is still yet to reach the target. The agreement is expected to open trade opportunities for India's landlocked northeast, and it has also paved the way for Bangladesh to facilitate trade with Nepal and Bhutan through India. Coastal shipping is also underway, primarily linking Kolkata, Haldia, and Visakhapatnam with Chittagong and Mongla. While these connections are actually decades old, the India-Bangladesh coastal shipping agreement is a new and innovative idea of which is expected to reduce time and cost. These shipping routes are being used to send goods to the Northeast India, and an MOU is also exists between Bangladesh and Bhutan for the use of riverine transport for transit to Chittagong Port. Now, if we also think that recently Bangladesh has given India access to the Chittagong and Mongla seaports for the first transshipment of goods from Kolkata to India's northeast took place to Chittagong Port in July 2020. Previously, it used to take about 15 to 20 days for goods to reach northeast from Mumbai. With the use of Chittagong Port, it will take only about 3 to 4 days. Similarly, Bangladesh and India, we are also revitalizing the rail links for connecting to the ports. Bangladesh and India currently have total 8 railway interchange points. Currently 4 are being used, and one new rail link, Chilahati-Haldibari route, is being revamped, and hopefully it will start operational, or it will be operationalized soon, and it will enable Bhutan to connect via rail to Bangladesh. Similarly, the Padma River rail link will constitute a vital segment for the multimodal regional connectivity. A road also from Dauki Tamabil across the India-Bangladesh border at Meghalaya would also go all the way to the shores of the Bay of Bengal and connect Meghalaya to the bay. Bangladesh is also very much a part of the UN-ESCAP Trans-Asian Railway Network, the SARC Railway Corridor, the SASEC Railway Corridor, and the BCIM Economic Corridor. Now, as we stretch our eyes to capture the larger picture, in this vast picture, we will pursue the path of shared prosperity through planned and sustainable development of our transport infrastructure network that would reach out to the furthest corners of the country and live up to the people's expectations and be able to cater to their needs. However, multimodal connectivity may entail unintended impacts on the people, the culture, and the ecosystems and biodiversity. If such concerns are addressed properly, the seamless integration of Nepal, Bhutan, and Northeast India with the global production network through Bangladesh as a gateway will lead to economic resurgence of this hinterland. I thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador Mashfi Shams, for a very comprehensive assessment of the challenges that these landlocked countries face, together with the landlocked portion of India, which has somewhat different challenges. And if I take away 2 points from your presentation, I think the first one is that these landlocked countries seem to trade more with their neighbors. So there is a problem of reaching to the Bay of Bengal. Unless they can negotiate, transit corridors that are really effective and really smooth. So unless they can do that, countries like Bhutan and Nepal are stuck, and they have to rely on their neighbors to give them access to the sea. On the other hand, the Northeast India faces a different sort of landlocked problem, in the sense that at least they have, the federal government of India taking care of the geopolitical issues that arise, and getting Bangladesh to provide the necessary corridors, the access to the sea. And quite, it's logical, and it's clear that once they get access to the sea through Bangladesh, the time taken for goods to be transported from Mumbai to let's say Tripura would be done by 50%, if not more than that. So it's a tremendous boost to the economy of these regions to get the kind of transit and access to the sea. So the other point that was notable is that financing issues. I mean, these landlocked countries have a serious infrastructure problems. Even some of them have the potential of hydroelectricity, but then the issue is who is going to provide the investment capital for them to build up those infrastructure projects, and that is a serious issue. And hopefully, the world and particularly the Asian region is coming up with more financial institutions that can have the resources besides the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank to provide infrastructure finance to these countries. So, but that has to be done on a multilateral level. A bilateral finance is not going to be enough to meet their infrastructure resource needs. But thank you so much for your insights, and I think our listeners and participants must be benefited from your insights. I guess I missed something that Ambassador Tariq Karim said. I had to introduce myself, which I did not. So may I take this opportunity to say very briefly that I also was a civil servant. I started my career as a civil servant back in 1969. I joined the civil service of Pakistan, and I did my time in the districts of Bangladesh. was last a district magistrate, the powers of a district magistrate. And I was also appointed district magistrate in Sylhet by Bongo Bundu, but 15th of August, things all changed. So I left and I went off for higher studies in the USA, and I changed my career from civil service to being an economist. I taught in the universities in the USA, and then I worked for the World Bank as a consultant and then as a staff economist for a long time before retiring and then setting up this institution called a Policy Research Institute, along with two of my colleagues from the World Bank and IMF. And we are into the 11th year of operation, and we've done a lot of work for the government. In fact, we've been the principal authors of 3 5-year plans, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th 5-year plan. The 8th 5-year plan is under review. We also did 2 perspective plans, 2021 and 2041 for the government. And besides that, we have been advising the Bangladesh Bank, National Board of Revenue, Ministry of Commerce, and of course, the General Economics Division of the Planning Commission. So we've got quite a lot of exposure to government policies, and the government has quite often taken our advice. It's not always true that anything we say the government has to take. So we are sort of playing the role of advisors. With that, I would like to move on to our event here, and we've got quite a, as I mentioned, an ensemble of very talented and seasoned panelists. The first one I'd like to invite Mr. Ram Shor Kanal, who was the former economic advisor to the Prime Minister of Nepal and also the former Finance Secretary of Nepal. Mr. Kanal, as is usually the case when you are the Finance Secretary and also advisor to the Prime Minister, you are, director and head of many institutions, particularly financial institutions in Nepal. And Mr. Kanal, indeed, was, he was the Revenue Secretary. He was the chairman of the President, Conservation Board. Plus, he introduced reforms in government accounting and reporting, public procurements, tax policy, and administration. So he's a seasoned civil servant, and now is working as a regular faculty at Saim College in Nepal, I guess. And he's one of the South Asian champions for World Bank policy discussions in South Asia regional cooperation. So with that, I invite Mr. Ram Shor Kanal to give his, observations on the keynote presentation, or whatever is his, specialization in those areas. The floor is yours, Mr. Ram Shor Kanal.
Thank you, Dr. Star, for generous introduction. Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Professor Milan Pagon, Ambassador Tariq Karim, Ambassador Marshfi Binte Shams, distinguished colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. Warm greetings from Kathmandu, and namaste and very good morning to all. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to IUB and particularly Ambassador Tariq Karim for inviting me to share my thoughts on regional importance of Bay of Bengal for landlocked countries. In fact, I attended previous 3 webinars on different dimensions of Bay of Bengal for Bangladesh in particular, and for littoral and landlocked countries in general. The discussions were very enlightening. I should congratulate IUB and the partner agencies, BIMRAD and ICAD, for initiating this high-level policy dialogue on the regional importance of Bay of Bengal. In my brief presentation today, I don't think I'll take more than 10 minutes, the time given to me. I will concentrate on the issues from the perspectives of landlocked countries that have a strong economic and environmental bonding with the Bay of Bengal, which ordinary public in these distant countries aren't mostly aware of. It is now increasingly being discussed at the policy level. In the past, many of the policymakers also were not very knowledgeable about the importance of Bay of Bengal for Nepal's economy or Bhutan's economy. That scenario is changing, but at the public level, even today, and the awareness level is very low. What I'll do is I'll try and summarize my discussion in 7 points so that I can be precise and I could be understood. The first point I would like to raise is the peaceful maritime space. Particularly Ambassador Marshke Vinte Shams today reiterated the same points that Foreign Secretary Excellency Masood bin Memon in his presentation on the first webinar had very eloquently made clear. It is evident that the maritime space of Bay of Bengal covers Bay of Bengal has remained a major trade route for centuries. Its significance is rising day by day as economies of littoral countries are growing. So is the case with landlocked countries. Nepal is also growing at a higher rate in the recent past 3 years. Only this year has been slightly dismal performance because of the COVID-19. There is also the emerging interest of the superpowers, and their intent is not just about the trade. Bay of Bengal trade, Bay of Bengal ecosystem, and well-being of the people in the region. We must be vigilant that the Bay of Bengal remains free from military activities. As a pivotal country in the region, because Bangladesh happens to be the pivotal country in the region in relation to the Bay of Bengal, Bangladesh, I think, can and should play active role in developing and preserving Bay of Bengal maritime space peaceful, so that the trade and commerce can take place without any disruption or any fear. That is the first point I would like to emphasize in the beginning. The second, which Ambassador Shams also highlighted very clearly, is the importance of the coastal shipping lines for landlocked countries. For example, in case of Nepal, our major imports mostly happens from Kolkata, Haldia. For a long time, Nepal had a very old agreement with India for transit facilities using Haldia port. Both of them are Kolkata and Haldia. Both of them are limited. Subsequently, we also got approval from Indian government to use Visakhapatnam port, which is a little better and more efficient than Kolkata and Haldia. In terms of distance, it is a little far away. But even if the distance, the cost of transport from Visakhapatnam is lower than that from Haldia and Kolkata. So connecting the Indian ports through the coastal shipping lines to all the ports in the Bay of Bengal would enable Nepal and also Bhutan and also all the countries in the Bay of Bengal region to reduce the cost of doing business, to be more competitive in the global marketplace, and improve the regional supply chain, regional value chain, which is very important, particularly when we face the supply shocks post-COVID-19. So that's, in short, the importance of coastal shipping lines, where Bangladesh can improve its ports. Definitely, the investment is going to be very high, and where would the money come from? These questions can be raised. But once we start the project, and once we have clear-cut idea of what we are doing, I do not think the money will be insufficient. The financial market of the world now has quite a good ability to finance good projects. Third point is the river navigation and multimodal transport. With the restoration of the traditional Indian waterways connecting Patna and Banaras, Nepal has seen the prospect of taking advantage from the river navigation. But river navigation alone is not sufficient for a country like Nepal and Bhutan. It has to be multimodal logistics based. So the seamless connectivity with the railways and roadways has to be there along with the river navigation. The work that Bangladesh has done, the recent news I read about the inland transport in Bangladesh was very encouraging. In Nepal, all of us were really happy with the progress we've made, and so is the case with India. Indians are little flexible. Indians had always been very, very strict and stringent in many matters on trade and transit, but with the inland navigation, they have been very cooperative with Nepal as well, trying to help Nepal connect its rivers with the Bay of Bengal and with the Bay of Bengal maritime space. The fourth one is
Kanal, may I remind you that we have some time constraints, so if you please wrap up your thoughts.
Yeah. I'll go faster. I have I think 4 more points, so I'll be short and precise. The fourth one is to have the which Ambassador Sams also has very well emphasized. They're having uniform standards for transportation and trade facilitation. So transit procedures, all kinds of non-tariff procedural barriers are the barriers. They are increasing the cost of doing business. So those have to be put in place, and there has to be a cooperation of all the countries: Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and India. The discussion in this front is encouraging now. The Indian government used to be, as all of us know, used to be very rigid in the past, but now they have seen the benefits accruing from better trade among poor countries. There are a lot of issues about the transit facilities that Nepal has been looking for, the optional transit facilities, which Ambassador Sams also has highlighted, like Nepal's agreement with China for the 4 seaports and 3 land ports. But that would not be used immediately. The prospect will be in the future when Nepal's trade and Bangladesh trade with Central Asia increases. Possibly Nepal can also be a transit country, providing transit to India and China, India and Bangladesh for trade with Central Asia using Chinese transit facility. So that's the 4th point. 5th, I am emphasizing a new point which was not raised in all of the last 3 webinars and also in this webinar, is having the common energy market. You see, the hydro resources in Nepal and Bhutan is the natural contribution of the Bay of Bengal. The most of the precipitation in Nepal, most of the rivers in Nepal are fed by water that nature supplies through its own system. So the hydropower is clean energy, and using this clean energy for the benefit of the regional growth and regional poverty alleviation is an important agenda. So improving the transmission link, having the cross-border investments, definitely investments are very high. Where will the money come from? So the question again arises. The money definitely comes from places once there are benefits. Chinese investors are investing in small scale in Nepal up to 200 megawatt of generation power. They might come in a big scale if there is a proper agreement, proper infrastructure in place, connecting Bangladesh and India, and having a energy market that is seamless, that functions without any problems. So there are technical glitches. There are also the pricing mechanism. Finding right price through the market is something that governments oftentimes don't like. And governments want to dictate what the energy prices should be. So we need to be really open in energy market that can increase the benefit of the Bay of Bengal water resources. The 6th point I'd like to emphasize is from our perspective. You see these.
Thank you, Secretary. I think we've run out of time. Would you mind
2 more points. Just 2 more points. Just 1 minute. The mountain environment, the fragile mountain environment contributes to Bay of Bengal. Nepal has a huge problem of siltation, the soil erosion. Every year, about 6,300 tons of soil per square kilometer is flown through river systems to Bay of Bengal. So the Nepali people and Bhutani people should also know that there are benefits that come to them if they conserve the nature. So forestry protection, forestry preservation is very important, and creating awareness at the public level. At least at the policy level, there is some awareness, but creating awareness at the public level is very important. That's what Nepal should do and Bhutan should do. So with this brief remarks, I would like to close. Thank you, Dr. Zaidi,
Thank you very much.
Giving me time.
Thank you very much, Secretary. And I thank you for the idea on the common energy market, because Bangladesh is definitely looking forward to importing energy from its neighbors, and Nepal is definitely a potential country which can provide plenty of surplus energy in the future. So thank you very much. We now move on to our next panelist, Rear Admiral Qazi Sarwar Hussain, NBP, NDC, who is advisor to the Bangladesh Institute of Maritime Research and Development. Since he is a real expert on maritime issues, I think it would be relevant to suggest that this Bay of Bengal, there's the economic landscape that tells us that the littoral countries, the South Asia region plus Myanmar and Thailand, they make up about 5% of global GDP. About $4.6 trillion of GDP is produced in this region. And about $1.5 trillion of trade is passing through the Bay of Bengal and to the global marketplace. So this is the economic perspective that I can add to our discussion on maritime issues, and I hope Rear Admiral will be taking the economic complement on board as well. Rear Admiral Qazi Sarwar Hussain is a visionary naval officer and a diplomat with 39 years of proven record of managing diversified establishments, such as naval bases, ships, boats, as well as some seaports and river ports. He has extensive experience of national and international regulations. He was Director General of Bangladesh Coast Guard, and he has a master's degree from Edward University, USA, and he's also a graduate of US Navy War College from Rhode Island, USA. He is a regular author, writes for the national and international journals. He is a veteran commander diver who has research interests for underwater diversity. So Rear Admiral Sarwar Hussain, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes in which to complete your submission, and I'll use the flexibility to give you another minute or two to wrap up your key messages. Thank you. The floor is yours, Rear Admiral Qazi Sarwar.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Zaidi. Thank you for your generous introduction about myself. Thank you. It was such a wonderful opportunity to listen to the keynote speaker and also a distinguished panelist from Nepal, who talked about the maritime connectivity of Bay of Bengal, how it served the landlocked countries. Now, as the moderator has said, that a large volume of trade that comes through Bay of Bengal, how it is distributed to the tributaries and the arteries into Bangladesh and also into the landlocked countries is a very technical subject on which we are going to deal from now on. So I would like to seek to apology at the beginning. I would tend to discuss on little technical issues in this in my part of presentation, and as the moderator has very kindly granted me another extra 2 minutes, so I would just overstep by maybe 2-3 minutes. With this, the technicalities that I'm going to present, I would like to simplify those with the use of some audio-visual slides. So can I have the permission to share screen, admin? Okay. Okay. I believe much was talked about the connectivity. Can you see the screen?
Okay. Yes, I think we can.
I believe much was talked about the connectivity and the strategic advantage that Bangladesh enjoys being at the crossroad of the economically rising South Asia and Southeast Asia. But I will only add one line here to say that Bangladesh can also access Western Myanmar, with whom we share border, and also can extend up to the Yunnan province of China, which is also very close by, and we can access through India and Myanmar, and we can extend that market over there also. That is also a possibility. So how do we leverage these connectivity to reap the maximum benefit that we can enjoy from this connectivity? In the last seminar, we talked about the blue economy, and we also talked about how do we convert our mind to be blue and to look at the South and to the Bay of Bengal. Through these academic discourse, we can turn our minds to the South and examine the opportunities of the benefits of connectivity through Bay of Bengal. Now, connectivity, as you can see, is very important. It enhances productivity, augment trade, and reduce logistical cost. It has a number of parts. It has a hardware, it has a software. I will not go into much into detail except to say that it's a system of systems that can be used to the advantage of the economy of the country, and also can assist the development of regional countries, including the landlocked countries. But what I intend to do now is, within the next 7-8 minutes that I have, I wish to conceptualize the maritime connectivity from two operational dimensions. Firstly, how can we exploit the gateway of the connectivity, the maritime connectivity, that is the seaports through which, the seaports through which we get all these volume of trade, and then we distribute in the hinterland through the arteries of connectivity. And then secondly, I would like to discuss about the exploit of the God that we have, the 54 rivers that we have been blessed with, which can promote extra-regional trade and which can also promote connectivity through the inland route. Let me talk about the port-led economy first. As you all know, we have been discussed a lot about in the previous discussions and also previous webinar. There is 80% of our trade by volume and 96% by value are handled by our ports. We heard about the Trans-Asian Highway, which connect Bangladesh with other neighbor ports, and also about the navigable inland waterways of 5,968 kilometers. Let me talk about Chittagong Port, which is the major port that we have. Chittagong Port, as you can see in the screen, has about 10 berths in the container yard, which can accommodate total 17 ships. And in 2019, it has handled 3.8 million TEU in 2019. I don't want to discuss about Chittagong Port, but what I want to discuss is the ongoing development that is needed to enhance the capability of Chittagong Port. You see in the slide, it is a growing curve. It's getting better and better. You know, from 2012 to 2019, you know, it has a double-digit growth in last couple of years in handling of the normal cargo and also handling the container cargo. So I'm going to use this slide just for a second to emphasize on the expenditure on infrastructure. There is a research done by World Bank where it says the doubling of spending on infrastructure can raise a GDP by 10%. So how can we improve the infrastructure of Chittagong Port? They have some fantastic ideas. I'm going to, you know, throw them in a very quick glimpse. They have a concept of bay terminal, where the bay terminal is going to be situated outside of the port. and it will be able to accommodate vessel of the draft of 12 meter, and it will have a channel width of 8 to 900 meter, which is pretty wide for that. The Mireshwarai cluster, we all know about. The Mireshwarai is coming up with there is a special economic zone is coming up with Mireshwarai, where Chittagong Port would have a stake. They would have a LPG terminal, they will have a coal-based power station, and they would also have a forward terminal over there. I just want to talk about few seconds on Matarbari cluster. Matarbari cluster is going to be a deep sea port where they will have an industry power hub for Bangladesh, having a coal-fired power plant, FSRU, deep water terminal, and also LNG terminal. So it's going to be a very important energy hub, which will be connected to, with the main grid of Bangladesh power distribution system. One second about the floating harbor project. This is a very fascinating project the Chittagong Port has come up with. They will have another floating harbor project, which will be a floating harbor. Last but not the least, on Chittagong Port is the belt, Bay of Bengal belt, that is so heavily, are going to be invested with so many industrial units and so many energy output centers. These I just flashed on the screen and also brought to the notice of these August audience to emphasize, only stress upon one point, that this kind of the infrastructure would require tremendous amount of investment and financial inputs. So we need to be aware of the benefits of the ports and also the industrial units that are coming along the coastal belt of Bangladesh. So I will very quickly switch over to Mongla. Please pardon me, some of these slides are in Bengali. So Mongla is, as you know, this is about 50 kilometers south of Khulna. And I don't want to talk about these. Let's skip this. They have about 6 jetties with about 19 private owned jetties and some mooring facilities also. They can handle as many as 1,500 ships at this point of time, with a cargo handling capacity of 1.5 metric ton. And their projection is, it is again as a growing curve. They have had 16% growth in the handling of cargo. I just want to leave this slide here just to show the projection that they have made until 2050, where you can see by 2025 they want to double the ships that they handle, and the container accommodation, also the accommodating the container would go up by again 50%, 100% as a matter of fact, which is a big I would say asking for them, and they would need again our cultural, spiritual, and also financial support. Now we also have a third port at Paira, which is being constructed. It is in the Ravnabad Channel. The Paira port would be able to accommodate. It's going to be deep draft port, which will be able to accommodate ships with a draft of 12 meter to 25 meter. So having talked about the port-led economy, I would now shift to my second focus, which would be the internal inland water transportation. So before
Excuse
I do
me,
that,
Rear Admiral,
yes.
you're now onto your 2 minutes.
Okay, sir, I will do it in another 3 minutes. So I just wanted to show this comparison of the cost of rail, road, and inland waterways transportation, to stress on the point that we really need to focus on inland water transportation. So if you look at the on these slides, the graph on the left would show how much power it is needed for a movement of just one kg of the of cargo. And the slide on the lower, just suffice it to say that for inland water transportation, we need to spend only 1 cent, as against 2.5 cents for rail transportation and 5.2 cents for the rail transportation. Let me now talk very briefly about the internal water transportation between Bangladesh, India, and also the landlocked countries. Of 4,095 kilometers of internal border that we share with India, about 1,116 kilometers falls under riverine boundaries. 54 transboundary cater for a very wide range of ecosystem that we have. Now the inland, we had the inland water protocol that was signed between the coastal shipping agreement that was signed between Bangladesh and India in 2015. Our ambassador has talked about this. An SOP was signed in November 2018, and October we also signed an agreement to use in 2018 to allow the use of Chittagong Port and Mongla Port for movement of cargo to and from India. Now, the coastal shipping agreement enables greater coordination of cargo operations between Haldia Port of India and also Mongla Port of Bangladesh. Concurrently, the operationalization of these also would benefit all the countries of this region, including the landlocked countries. Let me just quickly show some of these connectivities.
Thank you, Reverend Pearl. You must just now wrap up. Just
okay, I'm wrapping up. Okay.
Just the final word. Thank you.
The transshipment facility is an outcome of the bilateral agreement that we signed between our two countries. And this is going to allow us the transshipment of goods from Chittagong, Mongla, through all the intermodal transport facilities. So beginning of these is going to give us an opportunity to not only promote trade and commerce between our four countries, it would also bolster a very friendly relation between us. Will also support our foreign policy options and also support the regional integration, regional cooperation within the sphere of economy and also within the sphere of greater geopolitical interest of the region. Thank you.
Thank you.
End here, and I'm looking forward to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Question.
Thank you, Rear Admiral, for giving us an idea of Bangladesh's maritime infrastructure in those 10-15 minutes, something that I haven't known for the last 10-15 years. So this is very important. And let me tell you that Bangladesh trade has expanded tremendously. It was only $10 billion of trade in 2000. In 2019, that became 100. We reached a milestone of $100 billion of trade, $60 billion of import and $40 billion of export. And I'm wondering how the Chittagong Port and Mongla Port managed to handle this, 10 times expansion in trade. I'm sure it was a major challenge. So we now move on to our next panelist, who is Shobboshachi Dotto, who's the founder director of Asian Confluence, India East Asia Center, headquartered in Shillong, Meghalaya. The Asian Confluence is a pan-regional initiative to promote an open space of cultural and intellectual exchange. Mr. Shobboshachi Dotto is a successful career spanning 12 years in the Silicon Valley, California, in cutting-edge technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. He held important positions in Sony Corporation, and as well as in successful startups. He's widely traveled globally and a speaker at conferences worldwide. He's a longtime avid student of Indian culture, philosophy, public policy, and international relations. Mr. Dotto, the floor is yours. And you have 10 minutes, sir, and I'll give you another 2 minutes just to wrap up your ideas. Thank you. Is Mr. Shobboshachi Dotto on?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Glad to see you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have started my stopwatch to make your life a little easier.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Warm greetings from Shillong in India. and a very big thank you to the organizers and Ambassador Tariq Karim for inviting me to this extremely important topic. And I'm a bit humbled because of such a important and erudite line of speakers. And I'm the last speaker of not only this panel, but also all of the webinars. So I do feel a bit intimidated. But having said that, I'll try to make the most of the time. I guess I was invited here as the one Indian voice, but I am also here because I am from the northeast of India. The northeast of India, along with our northern neighbors, Bhutan and Nepal, and our southern neighbors, Bangladesh and Myanmar, I think together create a unique ecosystem, which is a mountain to sea ecosystem. So if we see it from the southern side of the Himalayas going all the way to the Bay of Bengal, we are together a mountain to sea ecosystem, which binds us in a very unique bonds of ecology, culture, economy. We have, as previous speakers said, 54 transboundary rivers between India and Bangladesh. And my organization is working very much on those lines to highlight the importance of those rivers and collaboration. So on that context, I would like to keep my viewpoints as somebody from India, but from the northeast of India. And secondly, I would like to say what I have to say from what we call at the Asian Confluence the third space, which is a space beyond government, but includes voices from the government, beyond business, but includes voices from the business and corporate world, and a space which is inspired by learnings from our history, our shared history, an appreciation of our common geography, a recognition of our present opportunities and challenges, such as COVID has recently posed, and ideas from the future. So it is from that space of inspiration that I would like to offer my ideas, share some ideas, and seek your valid viewpoints. In this process, which the Vice Chancellor of IUB started off saying that this whole series of webinars was to create collaborations based on evidence. Which brings me to the point that I would like to draw that the first webinar, a very well-known economist from Bangladesh said that Bangladesh should consider its land area, her land area, not only the land, but also the 11,000 square kilometers of the ocean, of the Bay of Bengal. And together is what constitutes Bangladesh. And I think if we look at it that way, in this mountain to sea ecosystem, I would start off by saying that I live in Shillong. We are very close to Cherrapunji. Cherrapunji is the highest rainfall in the world. It is where the first monsoons gather water over the Bay of Bengal and hits the first windward slopes, which is why it is the heaviest rainfall in the world. So our entire precipitation, our entire climate is dependent on the Bay of Bengal. Cyclones in the Bay of Bengal affect us directly. So we are tied at the hip in this mountain to sea ecosystem. We are tied at the level of monsoons, our rivers, our estuaries, and our biodiversity. So on that point, we are such a rich ecological biodiverse region. And I think that gives us a huge level of complementarity in the type of produce that the region offers. For example, there are high value fruits, vegetables that can be grown in the northeastern parts and the mountainous areas of our country, which do not grow in Bangladesh, for example. So there is a great complementarity of products, goods, which can be reframed to create new value chains for the future. So my first point was, we have to gather and propagate evidence on our shared ecology. Based on the ecology, we also have to find out new ways in which we can create new values, value chains based on the connectivities that are happening. Northeast India recently has started the route on the protocol route, India-Bangladesh protocol route on the Sonamura River, which gives access for Tripura, as was said. So the inland waterways, the ports of Bangladesh as a gateway to the Bay of Bengal, can create great opportunities for creating new agri, aqua, horticulture value chains for the entire region. And maybe this is something that we can take forward and think more together. How the blue economy of the Bay of Bengal can connect to the hill economies of the middle-level states of India, and to the mountain economies of places like Bhutan, Nepal, and Arunachal Pradesh. So, if we have to gather evidence on this ecology, economy, I think we need to work more towards creating collaborations which can create education on this. At the level of government, all of you esteemed members who have been diplomats, served in various positions, you know about it. In the academic community, we know about it. But I think people at a general level are not as appreciative of our mutual dependence as we should be in the times to come. And I think we need to create synergies, collaborations, alliances within the region, which can build more trust amongst civil society in the third space, to create what I would propose an output of this seminar, an inspired group of invested institutions and individuals for creating more education and more trust building on how we are dependent on each other, whether it is Nepal, which needs access to the Bay of Bengal via the northeastern states, the southern ends, the Terai region, which is very rich in a lot of areas, farm produce, dairy produce, Bhutan, or the northeastern states in general. I think we have to really create much more of an education on that. My last point would be that I would like to propose that we form a group of institutions across the region to take this forward as a champions group. As far as, since this is the last webinar, I think definitely Asian Confluence, but all our other partners, we can form chairs in each other's universities and institutions maybe to create studies on this complementarity of how the Bay of Bengal is linked to the mountain economies and the hill economies. And lastly, I think I would also draw attention to something that the Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh said in the inaugural webinar, that I think we need to create better management of our shared rivers, river projects. Maybe we can think of new ways and means in which the inland water connectivity impetus that has already started at the level of government can gain further traction by developing projects along the ports, new kind of products, tourism products, so that this region becomes vibrant as it used to be pre-partition. I must take a leaf out of history to say that I think the tea of Assam, the produce of Meghalaya, they were all coming through this route and exported through the Bay of Bengal. So we are not reinventing something new. I think we just need to revisit our history and take a leaf out and take forward what we have already learned. So on that note, I look forward not only as Asian Confluence, but a member of this region and my country to work together. As Bangladesh enters the 50th year next year, I think it's a great start to take a quantum leap forward in not only India-Bangladesh relations, but India-Bangladesh relations as a new enabler for the growth of the entire region, mountain Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal. And we look forward to working on that. So I have kept away from my prepared speech and spoke what I thought was in my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Datta, for keeping the time. And it was very useful. I take away one idea from you about, value chains and based on shared ecology. You see, the COVID-19 crisis has given us one lesson: that global value chains have to be rethought because, of the disruption that was caused because China closed down, so you couldn't get your intermediate inputs and so on and so forth. But regional value chains can survive, and I think maybe promoted in the future as a lesson from the COVID-19 crisis. But thank you very much. And our next panelist, what I have on the program, I have remarks by special guest, Her Excellency Ambassador Renzi Tering, head of the European Union delegation to Bangladesh. Ambassador Tering has been the ambassador for the European Union delegation in Bangladesh for quite a few years. In fact, around January or February, I think a PRI delegation met with her. We had a discussion with you. She joined the European Commission in 1995 as administrator for South Asia. And she was nominated to the EU, Catherine Ashton, as EU ambassador and head of delegation to Nepal, and also the EU representative to SAARC in April 2013. So she has got a lot of exposure to South Asian context. I'm sure she can add a lot of ideas to what we are thinking today. So Ambassador Renzi Tering, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. So I'm delighted to participate, and I would want to warmly thank Ambassador Karim for inviting me. Thank you also for chairing this, Dr. Sattar. And can I give a special greetings to my good friend Mashvi, Ambassador Mashvi. We worked together in Nepal. So I'm delighted to see you again. And also Ambassador Topden, with whom we overlapped, the Ambassador Topden Rapier. We worked together for a couple of years in Bhutan. So I'm really so delighted to see you on the screen, if not, unfortunately, in person during these difficult COVID times. I don't know how much time I have. I will not speak very long, but I think I want to just, yeah.
The program says you have a 5-minute,
5 minutes.
Just some courtesies, if you like.
Right. So without further ado, I wanted to pick up on a number of points that were brought forward by the panelists. The number one is, of course, infrastructure and connectivity. This is crucial for the region, for the Bay of Bengal, as we have seen in the presentation. But it's also, of course, crucial for the partners, including the EU, who are working with the different countries, be it Nepal, be it Bangladesh, be it India. And in 2018, the EU put forward its communication on a strategy for connectivity with Asia. And it has a lot of ambitious goals to focus to work on increased connectivity in terms of transport, be it air, sea, land transport, on energy, on trade, obviously, trading routes, and of course also on people-to-people contacts. And one thing that was quite interesting from that communication or paper, if you want, or a policy paper, is that for Asia to reach, to keep its current GDP growth, it will need about, let me just see if I have the figures here right, some 1.3 trillion euro a year of infrastructure in investments to maintain today's growth rates and to also adapt to climate change. By comparison, EU investments in the Trans-European network, which is our, let's say, localized network within Europe, would also need some 1.5 trillion, but that's in over a 9-year period. So just to, again, hit home how much money is involved. where is the money coming from? I think not much was said today about the elephant in the room, perhaps the neighbor in the north with the Belt and Road Initiative. The European Union is also quite active through the European Investment Bank, which is our own World Bank, let's say, which gives loans to countries in the regions at very interesting interest rates. So we have projects in Nepal, especially in hydropower. Again, hydropower was, of course, mentioned as one of the important areas of investment for clean energy, but also looking for transmission lines, because the trade in energy will not take off if locally also transmission lines will be up and running. So that is another important project. The EIB is also active in Bangladesh. I think we've just signed a project on rail connectivity. So the EU is there. Of course, we don't have the same means at our disposal as our Chinese friends, but just to say that connectivity is high on the agenda. And that brings me to regional cooperation. I mean, the EU is, of course, a major fan of regional cooperation. It's the whole raison d'etre that the EU exists as a confidence building mechanism that came out of the Second World War, and integration in Europe as such, which I think we can say is one of the most successful regional integration projects to date. So here we're looking actually of working with SAARC, of working with BIMSTEC, the BBIN. These are all important mechanisms with which we want to continue working. SAARC has not, for obvious reasons, been that much positive. It has been in a limbo for a couple of years. But we're looking now at BIMSTEC, and also looking forward in January, when the next BIMSTEC summit will be held in Colombo. There will be the declaration of a charter, which may open up BIMSTEC's cooperation with third countries. So this will perhaps enable the EU to become BIMSTEC observer, and also to channel maybe development cooperation through the BIMSTEC Secretariat. Let's see. We're looking very with great interest to that important milestone. For third point I have here is the people-to-people contacts, and I think it was the last speaker, Mr. Datta, Dr. Datta, who pointed that out. And I would say linking institutions in the region to take this further is an excellent idea. And let's not forget of the institutions that are already doing an important work. There is, of course, ECMOD, which is rather technical, but it looks at the mountainous regions, also China and both India, with its secretariat in Kathmandu. And again, from my times in Kathmandu, I wanted to mention the Himalayan Consensus, which is an initiative that was pushed forward by Sujeev Shakya, maybe well known to many of you. So these are institutions that could perhaps also be part of the equation. And then my last point would be also, I think, very important, is on environment, climate change mitigation, and biodiversity. I think if I looked at the Rear Admiral's very interesting presentation on port development, etc., this is hugely ambitious. It raises, of course, questions of infrastructure, who's going to make this happen. But I think importantly, we should not forget the footprint in terms of ecological destruction that this will also bring. And this is, of course, not only relevant for the Bay of Bengal. I think we had the other webinar that was already held on the Bay of Bengal really pointed out the challenges in terms of marine ecology, etc. The Sundarbans, which I think we should really do much more to protect. The last cyclone Amphan pointed out very clearly again that many people's lives were saved thanks to the Sundarbans. So would be something that would really need to be protected. Again, Nepal, just as a last sentence, or to finish, Nepal was a champion of forestry and conservation. And now the whole idea of building an airport that should serve as a regional hub is something that would maybe in current times need to be re-evaluated, because chopping off 2 million trees for a doubtful project is something I think we could also keep in our minds as a what should our future connectivity strategy be. So I hope I'm within my 5 minutes. If not, my apologies, but thank you once more.
Thank you, but it was worthwhile. It was, you covered, environment, people, infrastructure, everything. So I would not even attempt to dwell on that, but it was very comprehensive. Thank you so much in a very short time. I think we also have another special guest, the former ambassador to Bangladesh, His Excellency Sonam Tobden Rabge. Are you in a position to say something in 5 minutes? Ambassador Tob Rabge has an MA in International Relations from the Fletcher School, Tufts University. We all know Tufts University in Boston. I did my PhD from Boston University, so we know across the river. So you want to say something within 5 minutes? We're really constrained for time. You have anything to add, Ambassador? Can you unmute, please? Unmute. Please unmute. It's not unmuted yet. Okay, no, okay. Yes, please. Please go ahead. You have.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now
okay,
I can hear you.
sorry.
But you have only 5 minutes, sir. We are really running out of time.
Okay, thank you. Greetings, Chair, distinguished speakers, panelists. It's nice to see some familiar faces from Dhaka, and I wish you all well in the years and days ahead. Professor Milan, thank you. Vice Chancellor, Independent University, and co-partners for organizing this event. Thank you, Ambassador Tariq, for inviting me as a special guest to share about Bhutan's experience in dealing with this pandemic. So my topic is slightly different. Allow me to begin with a few numbers which tell our story regarding COVID-19. As of yesterday, we had 298 confirmed COVID cases, of which 61 are active and 237 recovered. Among the confirmed cases, 31 are actually non-Bhutanese. The total number of tested is 142,510, almost more than 1/6 of our population. And those who completed quarantine facility is about 15,000. We have been very fortunate so far. Not a single life has been lost to COVID-19. The first case was imported by a tourist from the US on 5th March. He was 76 years old and suffering from other serious medical conditions. Yet against all odds, he survived and left the country due to the treatment by the medical staff and the personal attention of His Majesty the King. Bhutan's remarkable success in tackling COVID-19 may be due to our small population and the following: leadership. His Majesty on 22nd March itself came on national TV and spoke to the people why drastic measures must be put in place in light of COVID-19. It lasted only a few minutes, but the message was clear, sobering, and at the same time reassuring. Just 4 days after the second royal birth, His Majesty embarked on a nationwide tour to meet local authorities, frontline workers, students, and farmers, and to see firsthand measures put in place to deal with the pandemic. Such tours have already been undertaken in 19 out of 20 districts. As we speak now, His Majesty the 4th and 5th King are again touring southern Bhutan that share open and porous borders, which could be our Achilles heels. These are not photo ops, but serious working visits. Our Prime Minister happens to be a practicing surgeon who studied in Bangladesh. Our Health Minister has a master's degree in public health from Yale University. Together, they have used science to deal with the pandemic and give regular press conferences that are clear, clinical, and easy to understand. Other senior
You have
Bhutanese
one
with
more
medical-
minute, sir, to conclude your message.
Okay.
One more minute, please.
Then, apart from the factors that may have contributed to the success of our dealing with COVID-19, I would like to conclude by mentioning that this pandemic, like the other speakers mentioned, provides an opportunity to work together for landlocked countries to link with the global economy. When I was in Dhaka in July 2019, we had a trial run of using inland waterways from Dhubri, Assam to Naranganj, Dhaka, and it was very successful. And I hope that this will be further pursued and operationalized, because this could give meaning to what some of the previous speakers said. It is so crucial for landlocked countries to work together with their neighboring countries who have access to sea.
Thank you, sir.
With that, I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we don't have much time, but we'll open the floor for discussion. And I can already see how can we not have the former Foreign Secretary and Ambassador Shamsher Mobin Chaudhry. Can we have some views from you, please, in 3 minutes?
Thank you very much, Zaidi. I think I have already sent some comments, so it would basically cover my question. One is when you talk of the littoral countries of talk of the littoral only to our west, India, but then there's another littoral which is to our east. So that has not been covered in this webinar. I don't know whether you had separate one. Number two, Mashfi mentioned two very critical issue on the multimodal connectivity, and he talked of ecological issues and infrastructure. So how do we plan to, how does one plan to address with this? Very, very critical. My third and last point is both BBIN is held up and BCIM is absolutely off the table. How does extra-regional situation or opinions or positions impact on further strengthening our regional cooperation? Thank you once again.
Thank you. Ambassador Mashfi, would you like to respond to his queries?
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. Sir, the BBIN motor vehicle agreement, the passenger protocol is, we are working on it. For some reason, Bhutan has decided to join us later. So Bangladesh, India, Nepal have been moving ahead. The trial bus run took place in April 2018 and it was very successful. There are some issues in Nepal which they have raised regarding service charges and issues of road infrastructure not being ready and all those sort of issues. So we are working, the joint working groups are working very hard. We are hopeful that it will come into effect, sir. Once the passenger protocol, the passenger vehicle bus service is in place, we hope that the cargo protocol will be operational. I think this will be one of the most visible outcomes and one of the most visible ways that we can show to the world that the regional integration is possible. So ecologically, of course, ecological impact, the more we use, the other day we were discussing, the more we use our inland waterways, the more we will be able to keep our rivers navigable, and we will be able to keep them functioning also, and also to prevent the illegal encroachment, which continues to be an issue in Bangladesh. So I think I think that should
like to ask a question or make a comment. Is anyone? The floor is open for discussion now. You have to first unmute.
Sir, I am DG Bimrat. I have raised my hand. I thought you would be
Oh, okay. I haven't seen. Please go ahead. I cannot see you. Can you unmute and also be on the video?
Yes, my video is on, and also I have unmuted.
Okay.
I'm the DG BIMRAD.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll be very brief. Anyway, thanks very much for the speakers and panelists. But thing is that, sir, here they have discussed the points, very important points came up, but the very aim of these webinars, series of webinars to find out some pros and cons. Everybody has mentioned some points, but look at this, ambassador mentioned the BBIN, when it has been started, how long since been started. What is the progress of BIMSTEC? It's 22 years. Yes, there are some progress, but is it, are we happy? The BIMSTEC to provide the landlocked countries support, what are the support they are getting? What the another panelist from Nepal, he wanted to mention some points, Bangladesh ports, but he did not mention actually the cons. Cons are not discussed. So we actually here want to listen some disadvantages and cons from you. They are all very, very learned and experienced lecturer and speakers. So look at the again Kaladan project. 20 years back it has been started. Now it is no progress. So is it a wrong decision taken at that time? Is it why is it then not been taken? So I'll also request the moderator to sum up and give us some ideas so that we BIMRAD and the IIUB, ICAD has joined together, and we also would like to listen from you that what kind of how there are some disadvantages, and you should give us some highlights, hints to go forward. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, thank you very much for a very elaborate question. Unfortunately, the moderator is an economist, actually a trade economist by specialization. So I can only tell you what is likely to happen in terms of leveraging global trade. But the progress Bangladesh has made in the last 25 years using the Bay of Bengal as a conduit for international trade integration, that has yielded tremendous dividends. And but there are two different things. One is that in the past we have linked with Europe and North America. That has been our market. But in the next 25 years plus, by 2050, Asia will be accounting for 52% of global GDP, and 3 out of 4 biggest countries of the world will be in Asia. Japan, China, and India are slated to be the 3 of the 4 largest countries in the world. Bay of Bengal will continue to be a conduit, but then we will link with Asia and East Asia in particular to leverage trade. So, and East Asia is going to be just as large markets as Europe is today or North America is today. So that's our future. The other thing is, in the post-COVID world is going to be different from what we have seen in the past. That is what the leading economists, leading analysts are telling us. The hyper-globalization, which they call hyper-globalization of the past, might not be sustainable. What we might have in the future is a moderate form of globalization, because at least I, for one, believe that globalization is irreversible. So we will have not hyper-globalization anymore, because there's been so many disruptions to that. So we'll have moderate globalization, but this time integration will be with Asia and the regions, the littoral states, if you may call it, the peripheral states to the Bay of Bengal. And if you extend it to Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and East Asia, this is the region where the shift of the balance of economic power will be moving, and also the balance of geopolitical power and influence could also be moving in this direction. This is what we look forward to in the next 20, 25 years. With those words, I probably have not answered all your questions, but maybe Ambassador Tariq Karim in his closing remarks would address some of those. To Ambassador Tariq Karim.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was just supposed to give a vote of thanks, but I will take this opportunity. We still have about 9 minutes. I'll take about 5 or 6 minutes to inject my own ideas as I give my vote of thanks. First and foremost, before I forget or get engrossed in what I have to say, I would like to congratulate and thank our partners, BIMRAD and ICAD, for having helped us to get this series of webinars together. And let me take a leap from this opening remark to the points made by Commodore Imdad, the DG BIMRAD, that this webinar was designed as a sort of a brainstorming session to try and identify what is possible and what is not, and to identify areas, as everybody has pointed out in one way or the other. We are not going to revert to the old normal in any way anytime soon. As moderator, you yourself pointed out, this will be a post-COVID-19 scenario or world will be totally different from the pre-COVID one. And I think that is where we have to readjust our thoughts, our paradigm in thinking, economically, ecologically, and otherwise, and even geopolitically. Number two, I would emphasize that perhaps, as you rightly mentioned, globalization as we know it was a top-down process. Now the globalization, the new global, it's not going to go away. We are too integrally involved with the globe. It's an inevitable process in which we cannot from which we cannot extricate ourselves. I think we will redefine it. The new globalization will be, if I may say, a bottom-up process, meaning that it will start with the national scenarios, reconsolidating their own local value chains and supply chains, then reconnecting to the region, which has been missing in our region for the last 70 years. That is where we went wrong. And then gradually radiating out. So it will be starting from the center, radiating out rather than coming from the side and hitting us and impacting us and creating all sorts of waves. Having said that, yes, many of the cons, as Commodore Imdad pointed out, we have not addressed, but we have identified what we have not addressed. I think that is the big takeaway. The fact that we have not been able to address it, we need to, so this is the fourth of the curtain raiser series of webinars. And once we get going, once the Center for Bay of Bengal Studies is set up, the partnership really takes off, we will look forward to building epistemic partnerships with like-minded institutions across the region, because the Bay of Bengal, after all, is a commons. It is named after Bengal, but it's a commons. It stretches from Sri Lanka in the southwest to Malaysia and Indonesia in the southeast. And that is what we have to address, and what happens in the Bay will affect us as what we do affects the Bay. Our viability and our existence, actually I call it an existential issue, is interdependent. Many points have been raised. The point raised about the energy security that Rameshwar Khanal raised is very, very important. If you're talking about global warming and climate change, Dr. Salimul Haq, in his previous in the session in which he gave the keynote address, he's already pointed out the dangers that we are looming. The surface water temperatures in the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea were 1 degree higher, 1 degree Celsius higher than they were in the previous May. And that is why we had more storm surges and more severe cyclones. And I think if we are not able to control that temperature rise quickly now, it seems to be rising faster than many anticipated, then we are in for serious trouble, with Bangladesh maybe having more than 20 million people displaced. And this is going to create shock waves, not just in Bangladesh, but in the regional economy and in the global economy. So we need to figure out ways of doing that and addressing our harnessing of clean energy. The Northeast and Bhutan and Nepal combined have fabulous amounts of energy, which nobody has tapped in, mainly because we are not talking to or collaborating with each other. If we could do that, perhaps it will not be as much as estimated, but even what we can generate and share will actually enable us to replace all the hydrocarbon sources that we have in the next 20 years or so. We have bilateral grids already between Bhutan and India, between Bangladesh and India, and between Nepal and India. The challenge will be, how do we connect these three bilateral grids into a regional subgrid? And then we can radiate out to east and west. It's, in my 50 plus years of experience, the one lesson I take is that yes, a good idea never dies. As long as there are people who keep pursuing that idea and picking it up. Our trajectory in making things happen has been very slow because of our tortuous legacy of the history that we have inherited. But I think we have come to an inflection point where each of us is realizing that we need to collaborate, particularly everybody impacted by the COVID-19 as we are, that we need to cooperate more with each other. And in a sense, I think that is where we all have success stories individually. We need to learn from these success stories. I mean, the success story of Bhutan in ensuring that they have zero mortality from the COVID is something that we need to build on. It's an admirable and commendable story. And so there are different areas, how Bangladesh achieved the growth rate of 8% from having been written off as a basket case. What made it work? This is something which India and others can also learn from. So this is I see it as a symbiotic experience in which we will learn or unlearn from each other. Having said that, let me complete my duties. I thank our keynote speaker, an old friend, and with whom I've had the privilege of working together, Ambassador Mashfi Shams, for her very informative and illuminating statement. She is an expert on South Asia region, and I'm glad that we have the right person at the right place at the right time to pursue these different ideas. I thank you, moderator, and I look forward to having this already nucleus of collaboration that we have formed between ourselves and ICAD and BIMRAT to also include organizations like PRI and also Asian Conference and others who have come forward with such seminally interesting ideas. I particularly thank our friends from Bhutan and moderator for you from joining in from the other end of the world, from Nepal and from Kathmandu, from Shillong, joining in today. I thank all the participants for the very valuable contributions. I thank the participants, passive participants who have joined in through the live web stream live cast, particularly our students and faculties and friends of IUB and BIMRAT and ICAD who have been invited. And I thank my associates who worked with me tirelessly in putting what was just a kernel of an idea into fruition. Thank the Vice Chancellor for his full support always given for this approach. And we hope that IUB will become a flagship for carrying forward and bringing to fruition at least some of the things that we have talked about. So this is the last concluding series of this curtain raiser webinar, but this is perhaps the first step taken in a new journey of 1,000 miles. And we hope that we shall have more substantive and in-depth discussions on individual topics or subjects or suggestions which have come up and which we can take forward more. Not cursory discussions, but in-depth discussions. And I recall here the opening inspirational comment made by our chief guest at the inaugural session, Dr. Professor Gohar Rizvi, the International Affairs to the Honorable Prime Minister. He pointed out that there has unfortunately been a huge and yawning gap between think tanks and policymakers. Policymakers need to act and enact policies based on solid information founded or based on science. That has been lacking. So in a sense, we hope, and he hoped that this institutional collaboration between IUB, BIMRAD, and ICAT, and perhaps extending to others, will fill that gap to provide policy options from which policymakers will then pick and choose and calibrate. So we hope that this is the beginning of a new journey. I thank you all once again. And with that, moderator, I hand back to you to close this webinar.
Well, there is not much to add after your fairly comprehensive remarks, which covered every aspect of this webinar. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. I thank all the participants. You wanted to say something?
I forgot to thank the media, our media partners who are actually what Sabya mentioned, getting our message and demystifying it to the common man on the streets.
Good. Thank you for pointing out, because they're not visible, but I'm sure they're behind. They have been hosting this webinar, and thanks to the media, because they're always our friends, and because they spread the word around. Otherwise, we will be talking all to ourselves. So thank you. Thanks to the media. Thanks to all the participants. Thanks to the panelists. All very esteemed individuals in their own right. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I wish you a good afternoon, though I'm here at 12 midnight in California. That's the way this COVID situation has created. That's what the COVID has created, and hopefully post-COVID we have a better world. It will be different, but let's make it a better world. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you.